Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. It's always ironic when a poorly behaved person yells, "I'm never coming here again." Yes, thank you. We'll make more room for the nice people. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Want double bags? Be my guest. So, backstory. I work at a grocery store. So it's, can I speak to your manager? And expired coupon tantrums galore. This particular store also charges $1 per plastic bag, so you're required to ask and then inform the customer of such circumstances, and most people acknowledge the price. Now, if someone asks me politely to double bag their groceries, I don't charge them for the second bag. This will be important later. So this happened earlier. An older man who seemed to be in his 60s goes into my lane with a cart full of stuff and doesn't seem to have any bags with him. So I ask him the typical, "Would you like bags? They cost $1 each" spiel, and this is what went down. Me, "Would you like a bag?" Man interrupting me, "Of course I want bags, and make sure to double bag them. I don't want it ripping and crap spilling out." Me, "Okay, sir, but just to let you know, scan my stuff and stop arguing with me." So I get to bagging his stuff and making sure to double bag every single bag. There was roughly 10 bags that were double bagged, so 20 bags sold in total. His total comes, and I think it was $50 and some change, plus the $20 for the bags. Would have only been 10 if he wasn't an entitled A-hat. Me, "That'll be $70, please." Fake a smile. Man, "What? That's impossible. I didn't buy no $70 worth of food. I'm on a budget." Me, "Well, as I tried to explain earlier, bags are $1 each and you requested I double bag." "This is insane. I demand to speak to your manager." Me, "No problem." And I page the manager. Manager comes by and I try to explain what happened, but the man yells at her about the situation. Manager proceeds to explain the bag policy and he claims I never did, but I state I tried to tell him and a nearby coworker was around to back me up on my claim. She basically told him to either pay for his crap or leave. Man pays for his $70 purchase with a check, groans, and leaves ranting and throwing a tantrum about how he was never shopping here again. Be a D-bag, pay extra for bags, dude. And our second story. The governor and his helmet. This story took place over a decade ago. It involves a governor and several flag officers in both the Marine Corps and Navy. A story about what one motivated Marine and his regulation book can do. After graduating boot camp and completing my training as an infantry machine gunner, I met with a first sergeant who offered me the exciting opportunity to come to Annapolis, Maryland and guard the U.S. Naval Academy. What kind of? A first sergeant asking a PFC if he'd like to do something? Well, it reminds me of the Louis C.K. drama. Anyway, I was off to Annapolis for 2 years. The schedule was brutal. 12 hours on post a day for 3 days, followed by 2 days off, one of those being a training day. I had many duties, but the worst was acting as gate sentry, armed perimeter security. The U.S. Naval Academy is not a fun place to be for the junior enlisted. It's a very high-pressure assignment as you're constantly surrounded by officers and politicians who could destroy you on a whim. At the same time, you're expected to be uncompromising in the fulfillment of your duties, as billet supersedes rank. After about 6 months of that, I realized that I wasn't going to make it. Knowing that nobody had ever been granted a duty station transfer before the 2-year mark, I started considering a conspicuously placed tattoo. I knew it would be against regulation, and I'd get non-judicial punishment at the very least. Wait a minute. Regulation? What if, in this highly political environment, I enforced every single regulation that exists? Well, that idea put me on a new mission, to become the largest nuisance possible, while at the same time conducting myself in a way that would put me beyond reproach. I set myself to memorizing every rule related to the facility and the military in general, orders made in the past that had never been amended and were long forgotten. I spent what little free time I had combing through the logbook graveyard, searching for wisdom from the centuries of the past. The complaints started rolling into my commanding officer, who then handed them off to the guard chief, who then chewed my butt. We'll just call the guard chief Gunny, because that's what he was. Gunny didn't want to be there either. He'd been in the infantry his whole career, which is insane. Gunny is the only Marine I ever met that had pulled that off, but the physical toll was obvious, as he appeared about 30 years older than he really was. So Gunny and I got along in our way. Thursday was our standing appointment for my butt chewing. After he made it through the stack of complaints, he'd have a list of orders designed to prevent that week's worth of complaints. I never tried to play lawyer ball with Gunny's orders, as that would have been a pretty dangerous game. Luckily, the pool of ridiculous regulations was pretty deep. So that goes on for nearly a year. By that time, I developed a reputation for being a massive a-hole. Gunny figured that the best way to defuse the situation, while not giving me what I wanted, a ticket to Iraq, was to assign me to low-traffic posts at odd hours. That certainly slowed me down, until one fateful morning when a staffing issue led to me being put on the main gate for the very busy morning shift. At that time, civilians liked to be seen exercising on the Naval Academy grounds, running, cycling, etc. Out of the early morning fog emerged a handful of men on bicycles, one without a helmet. That was an easy one. I informed the man that helmets were required in order to cycle on the academy, and after he tried to lie to me about how he'd just walk his bike around the grounds, I ordered him off the property. One of his helmeted companions explained to me that he was a police officer and informed me that this man was currently the governor of Maryland. I was genuinely unimpressed, as I'd regularly see folks like the Secretary of State. They left and I made a note in my logbook about the encounter. The next morning, I got assigned the same gate for the same shift. I almost laughed when I saw the governor show back up, this time with a bike helmet and a big grin. He looked confused when I asked him to hand me his helmet. After inspecting the helmet, I handed it back and informed him that his bicycle helmet was missing the Snell Safety Certification sticker, again ordering him off the property. Needless to say, he was upset, but eventually left. I made another note in the logbook, but didn't think much of it. I regularly ruined people's days. Fast forward about a month. Gunny comes speeding up to the guard post, nearly hanging out the window, already pointing and yelling at me. It took a couple of seconds to work out what he was yelling about, but when I finally did, I was terrified. Why the F does the Commandant of the Marine Corps know your name? What have you done? Get in the car. He wants to see you right now. So Gunny drove me back to the barracks. I changed into my dress blues, and we started the long and dead silent drive to Washington, D.C. For those who aren't in the Marines, the Commandant of the Marine Corps is a 4-star general who runs the show, the spiritual leader for the entire branch, the father figure. Upon arrival, I was put in formation with a bunch of other Marines I didn't know, and the Commandant went down the line shaking hands and handing out challenge coins, all under the watch of a photographer. We were then dismissed. I was incredibly confused, but luckily, Gunny had worked out what happened after talking to some other folks there. On the drive home, he explained to me that the Corps was not super excited about keeping a company of infantry Marines in Annapolis while the war raged in Iraq, but it was a long-standing tradition that the Navy insisted on keeping. So when the governor complained about me to the admiral running the academy, who then complained to the Commandant of the Marine Corps, he was delighted. I assume the Commandant mailed the photo to the USNA Admiral. Shortly after, I got orders to a unit deploying to Fallujah, which was heaven compared to Annapolis. Also, I might have killed that old tradition, as I went back several years ago and found that Marines were no longer guarding the Naval Academy. And our last story. Just found out an employee of mine has an HOA. I work for a medical supply company. About 6 months ago, a new guy, we'll call him Joe, started working for me. Now, our company does home deliveries of medications and medical supplies for the elderly. During the day, about 10 drivers take our Ford Connect vans and do deliveries, and then they rotate who takes their van home and who is on call overnight. So 2 weeks ago, I finally felt comfortable letting Joe be on call for us. He took the van home, did 1 or 2 runs that night. The next morning he came in and said he could not be on call anymore, As it's part of the job, I told him if he wanted to still work with us, he'd have to do this in a regular rotation. Fast forward 2 weeks, and I get a call from our local police department. They're over his house with him, a tow truck, and this old lady and her husband. The van had its plates removed, and someone has called the tow company to have it removed from the driveway. Luckily, our vans are equipped with security cams since, they contain controlled substances and all. One quick look at that shows this old man taking the plates off of our van. Needless to say, he ended up getting arrested that night, and after some further conversation with Joe, he told me they were the Führer and VP of the HOA. They had told him last time he brought the van home that it was in violation of some code about commercial vehicles, and if he brought it back, he would have issues. He said they've also fined him for having different color temperature lights in his house than the 4300K required, and for allowing his kids to play in their front yard. Long story short, I'm typing this from the BMV since they never did give me the plates back. I hope the old man's still in the Gray Bar Hotel. Wonder how much having a felon in your neighborhood decreases property value. Update. First off, can't stress this enough, but Joe's HOA is not really my problem. But given that I got dragged out of bed at 1 a.m. last night to deal with this crap and spent half my day dealing with the government getting our van new plates, I figured this guy's gonna get it. We're a rather large hospital chain and have a sizable legal department who currently has a light caseload. I sent all the details to them, and they're sending Mr. and Mrs. Führer a bill for the plates and 6 hours of billable time at $100 an hour, as well as making sure our local PD and courts follow up with all the charges against little Hitler. Should be interesting to see the tables turned on someone who loves to fine and mess with people. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.